I think very often the trauma, this trauma from the past is very often held in our body. So our, hormones get changed, our brain development became different for people who had trauma in their childhood. So any ways of maybe releasing some of that, or actually for you to get connected to your body, I think always helps, like meditation or different techniques or exercises.
Well, just really, I think it's interesting to sort of define what trauma is, because I think in the case of psychology, trauma is not necessarily a very, let's say, very traumatic experience that you go through, but it's more like the conditioning of your upbringing, which can be pushing you towards a certain direction. And in that process, there are things that get neglected or oppressed, and that in itself becomes the trauma. So in a sense, would you say everybody has some sort of trauma?
Yeah, I would be surprised if anybody had a perfect upbringing and a perfect childhood.
Look at me.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, very often it's not like a car accident or earthquake, and obviously that happens too, but I think a lot of us have sort of relational trauma. It's something of a neglect, or not being able to attach to your primary caregiver, for example. And I think that's much more common. That happens actually to most of us in one way or another. And very often trauma is not just the thing that happened to you, but it's very often what happens in those moments. Were you able to share this feeling of pain and hurt with anyone around you? Very often not. You had to deal with this by yourself as a very young child.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of sense of isolation, pain, made it very hard for us. So we start disconnect from our feelings and sense of selves, and we start losing ourselves. And I think that's almost like a coping mechanism that saved us at the time to survive. But later on, we get stuck in the pattern.
It comes back to haunt you.
Yeah, and we get stuck, and we continue to behave or to practice the same behaviors and stuck in the same relationship pattern, and that becomes the issue.
That's something I think we all have to spend a lot of time deeply reflect.
Yeah, I think a lot of time we just suppress them so deeply that we're even not aware of it, because maybe that happens a long time ago, happens like in your childhood. The classic thing, like therapists will ask you, how was your childhood like? Well, despite, it's not really a joke, but it actually impacts your how you deal with things and relationships now. So I'm actually quite curious, what brought you to this career path? Were you starting your career just knowing that you want to be a therapist, or you have also explored a few other options?
Exactly. Like, I guess a typical upbringing of let's say overseas Chinese, our parents may have very different aspirations for us. And what led you to this journey?
Yeah. Do you want to hear the short story or the long one?
Whichever you're comfortable with.
Okay, yeah. So you're right, in terms of that parents' expectation, I definitely felt that. So I came to the UK when I was 16, very good at science and maths. So, at A-levels I did, I think, physics and double maths. And, we all know that A-levels here, it's quite easy compared to China. So I think that sort of gave me this sense of, idea that I'm very good at maths. So I like maths because I was good at it. Yeah. And naturally, I just chose maths at university for my degree. And that, I think that decision was good at the time. And I couldn't imagine anything different. But that experience of going to university and then getting ready to actually becoming part of the society was quite difficult. Yeah. Because slowly I started to realize this is not where my passion is. Also because the subject became very difficult at university.
How did you come to realize, was there any triggering events that I feel like I'm turning this into a therapy session itself. But what was there any triggering events?
Yeah, I think it's simply the jump of the difficulty level actually.
Okay.
So in the first year at uni, I just realized how difficult like the subject became. It's completely different from A levels. So I started to have some sort of doubt about, actually maybe I'm not that good at it. But when I realized I'm not good at this subject, can I still find passion in it? And then slowly the answer becomes no.
Okay.
But what I did was that I still decided to use that as a test for myself, and I continued to finish the degree to a level that I was comfortable and happy with, almost like training my grit in a way.
Yeah.
But I almost already told myself that I'm hoping that, I won't be doing too much maths in the future. But I felt quite lost in, maybe year 3 at university, just on the cusp of graduating, trying to figure out exactly what I want to do. And you probably know that, if you are doing a science or engineering maths degree, almost at the time, the options felt quite limited. So for me at the time, the things I could see was working in banking, consultancy, maybe Big Four, or, things like that. And I think that's what I did. I did an internship in an investment bank after I graduated from uni, and got a return offer to come back a year after. So then I was faced with probably like the first sort of big decisions in my life, because previously it was pretty much a prescribed path that I was pretty much following.
Yeah.
So I was thinking like I could do a master in maths and fill this year up, and then continuing to my career in banking, or I could do something different. So I started to lean towards doing something different. And so I decided to go on a gap year.
Yeah.
And go traveling actually.
Yeah.
And it's always something that I was interesting and fascinated about. And actually my mom, when she was young, I think she was telling me stories about going somewhere in China with her friends and how life-changing that experience was. So I think that stayed with me. So I sort of took that as my opportunity also to do something similar. So then it was followed by, I think, 8 months trip, an 8 months journey, solo backpacking trip to Australia, New Zealand, and a few countries in South America. So so that's 10 years ago. So still looking back.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, so still looking back, I think that's probably one of the decisions I've made at the time.
Yeah.
Because I think that trip really challenged my view of myself. And I actually got to meet so many different people from different cultural background, age, profession, and I was just, wow, like I didn't know you could live life like this, for example.